What's going on, everybody? This is Island Hopper TV Podcast, and today we're going to talk about being a responsible, respectful traveler or tourist. I consider myself a traveler because I travel. I don't do vacations much. I don't really do too much tourist stuff except for when I'm making videos, but generally speaking, I am traveling. So the reason I'm making this is as a guide for people who are coming from other places who plan to travel the world and experience culture, food, and do it in a way that is tolerable, tolerant, or respectful. So let's get into it. First thing that I want to talk about is how to arrive or how to be in a place in a respectful way. So, number one, should go without saying, but some people forget, know where the trash bins are. Be mindful of how much trash you're producing in an island environment. Realize islands are not going to be the same as being in a big city in your home country, maybe London, Paris, New York, Florida, wherever you're from. Those islands, or wherever you're at, the smaller villages, they don't have the same kind of septic, sewage, water processing, electric. So you have to be aware of the fact that you might be in a jungle on an island and there will be bugs. Uh, you might not like the bugs, but that's part of living in a jungle or being in a jungle in the tropics. So being respectful of the nature, you don't want to be the type of person who's out there complaining about everything in the nature because you're the one who went there as a guest, okay? No one really wants to hear too much complaining. I understand it's muggy, it's hot, there's bugs, there's mosquitoes, but there's ways around it. Number one is just don't put a lot of scent on there, on your lotions and your perfumes. That's one way to avoid getting too many mosquitoes. I don't think you can avoid them completely because sometimes they just exist. But as far as the trash or taking a shower, just take into consideration, you don't always have to flush the toilet or take a long shower. And you want to be mindful of the sustainability of your impact on that location. Now, it's not always going to be the case because in some places you might be in a place like London or Paris or maybe Shenzhen or Shanghai where they have modern infrastructure. But when you're on an island, be mindful of how long you're traveling, how much trash you're producing, how much waste you're producing, and just basically try to leave it the way you found it. That's the best way. You don't want to be someone who leaves a bunch of waste, right? So respect the people, respect the silence when needed. Don't be someone who's in a bungalow or in a capsule hotel keeping everyone up because you're having a loud conversation. That's just something just basic, right? Now, be mindful of over tourism. Visit places early or off season. I've gone to a couple places personally here in Thailand where it's right now peak season. And so, I'm one of those people who's contributing to the over tourism, but it's being mindful of it. What are you doing to limit your impact on the over tourism? Uh, Maybe even consider exploring lesser known areas like we went out off in the jungle in Phang Na or maybe off into Khao Sak. And the good thing about that is you're helping support the smaller businesses that are outside the tourist zones, but also it's more affordable out there. So it can be really a good thing. Maybe even if you find a nice place, I would say this for you or maybe even others. Maybe you don't want to geotag it or let the hidden gem be known, but either way, you want to be respectful of those who are there. And you have to remember, wherever you're coming from, you think of yourself as an ambassador of your country. If you're coming from the United States, think, well, they might not have encountered many Americans lately, so their experience with you is what's going to shape or form their judgment or their interpretation of you. Or if you're coming from Mexico or if you're coming from Canada, keep that in mind. Think of yourself as an ambassador. So you're a representative of your country or your people or people who look like you. Because at the end of the day, these countries, they get tourism from all over the world, not just from the US, not just from Germany, not just from Canada or Australia, literally India, China, Japan. I think this is an important subject to touch on. the ambassador style tourist, okay? So you want to be respectful. You don't want them to think negative things about you or your country because you're a representative. Another thing is don't treat their culture like your entertainment. You know, people, they'll make, one of the things in Thailand is you're not supposed to get a Buddha tattoo, okay? Buddha's not supposed to be on your body. People do it anyway. They think they're being good, they think they're doing the right thing, but then they find out that it's actually considered disrespectful. We touched on the idea of loud behavior in quiet spaces, but also acting entitled because you're on vacation. I come across this from time to time. I saw this in Aruba. I remember there was this woman, she flew into Aruba and her suitcase had a little bit of damage on it. And she starts yelling at the staff at American Airlines or whatever the airline was that she was arriving from. And she was like, "Oh, I spent a lot of money to come here and I'm not coming back ever again because I can't believe this happened." To me, I'm watching this and I'm like, number one, it doesn't matter if you come or not. Like in my mind, I'm like, this lady thinks she's like, really contributing to the economy. People get this sense of entitlement. I've seen this on TikTok where someone said, "Your money or my money builds your country." People have this sense of entitlement that because they've got money that they can come to the country and basically everything needs to revolve around accommodating them. That's just not a good thing. I mean, that goes back to the ambassadorship concept of travel. You don't want to be someone who's that entitled. I get it. We get in our moods, we get in our funks. We might have frustrations early in the morning. You didn't have your coffee, or maybe you're just having a bad day, so you get frustrated. If you ever find yourself in that situation, just like everyone else, you're only human, you're going to make those mistakes. Just remember, you can make up for it at a later point. So, if you do need to be stern or if you do need to be direct, you can kind of come across direct, but then at the end of the day or at the end of the moment, you kind of want to laugh it off and make them know, like, hey, it was just a misunderstanding or whatever it is, and, kind of laugh it off and end on good terms. I would say that's really important. You always want to end on good terms. You don't want to build any enemies. You don't want to have any problems with people. So don't burn any bridges because you never know if you might have to go back across that bridge. For example, if you travel someplace, you don't want to necessarily go to a place, badmouth that place because you had a bad experience to where now, 15 years later, you're banned from there or you're not allowed back or something like that. And, now you want to go there because you're more mature, your perspective on it has changed. That's why, I mean, I've had countries that I've gone to that are not my favorite. They're not the easiest to travel around, and I'm not in a hurry to go back. But over time, my interpretation or my expectation of that place changes, and now maybe I do want to go back. So, never burn a bridge, okay? That's with the people that you work with. Even if you have someone who's scamming you, try to de escalate. It's all about de escalation. You don't want to get into a shouting match. You don't want to get into a fight for sure, but I would say that's kind of important. Another thing is support locals, not just big chains. Now, I stay at Hilton, I stay at IHG, I stay at Marriott, but I also stay at 3 stars or 2 stars. Right now, I'm staying at a privately owned hotel in Phuket. It's a capsule hotel. Really cool. It's not a chain hotel. But the point is that you're supporting locals anytime you're eating at a regular mom and pop shop, you're shopping at a mom and pop shop, and that really goes a long way. You don't have to do it. It's just you're doing it because you know that that's how they survive and you're helping out in a way. It's like you're supporting them. And I think that's good. Whether it be someone who's walking around selling little bracelets or someone who's selling little trinkets, you might not necessarily need that trinket, but for 50 baht for that person, you can help, you know, make that person day go a little bit better. And I don't see a problem with that. I know 50 baht might be a lot to someone who's just barely scraping by, which is like $1.50. But, that $1.50 to them, 50 baht can mean a lot more. Okay. So I would say supporting locals anytime you get a chance, especially with the small ticket items, those add up for that person. You'll even hear someone say, "Thank you for the good luck." They say, "Good luck, good luck, thank you, good luck." It's just like spreading good vibes, right? So I think that's great. Eating at the local restaurants, not just at McDonald's or Burger King. I know a lot of people do that when they come here. Or they only eat pizza and they're always worried. where can I get my, pizza or hamburger? I do eat those, but two out of the three meals a day, pretty consistently, I'm eating pad krapao, pad thai, or Penang curry, or masaman curry, or some local dish. Sometimes I'm just in a mood for a burger, though. Okay, it's just anytime you get a chance to support a local, I think that's good. Buying local crafts, not just mass produced souvenirs. Supporting an artist at $10. If you spend $10, it might not be a lot to you, but to them, it can be a good thing for them. Okay. Now, let's talk about dressing. How people dress. One thing that kind of gets me a little bit, and it's not that big of a deal, it's when people wear less clothes. Men do it. They walk around with their shirt off in the 7-Eleven or on the streets, in the malls, sometimes barefoot. You know, they wouldn't do that in their own country because they can't. But they come over here and they do it. Women, I don't know what it is about walking around in a bikini in a mall. I mean, barely any clothes on. You certainly wouldn't want to go to a sacred place dressed like that because they do have dress codes, and sometimes they're not always enforced on the scene. But the rule is you don't go into a temple with a hat or, barely dressed appropriately, So these are things you wouldn't do in a church in your home country. So why would you do it in someone else's country? Just because they don't say anything to you because they're trying to be non-confrontational doesn't mean that it's a green light for you to do whatever you want. This can happen in Vietnam. It can happen in Latin America. It can happen in, Europe, wherever you are. Okay. One thing that helps me before I go to a country for the first time is I do a little bit of research. I like YouTube. YouTube has always been my go-to. So I'll go on there and learn about things to know, local customs, things to do. So I would say learn before you land. So get some information, know the basics, the dress codes, the tipping, greetings. It's interesting because in some places tipping is required. In the USA, it's pretty much a requirement, right? But then you go to Japan and you tip, or China, they'll be like, that's kind of rude because they think that you're trying to buy them with your money or you're trying to impress them with your money. I've had it happen where I was going to give someone a tip just because I was grateful for their service, and they were like, it became very awkward really quickly. And so not every place wants you to tip, or it's two ways, right? The consumers don't want you to tip because then what you look like is the foreigner who's trying to outdo all the other foreigners. If you're getting a tip or if you're getting a massage and then you tip the person, then that means that all the locals in the place will feel like, oh, if they don't tip, then they're the cheapos. And then, so what you're trying to do is basically position yourself ahead because it's not part of their culture. I experienced this with massage in Singapore. I went to a place where there was mostly only locals, and I was just getting a foot massage, and I wanted to give like a couple dollar tip. Well, I noticed no one else was doing it except for me, and it was kind of awkward. It was kind of rude of me because what I'm trying to do is be like, yeah, I'm the cool guy. I'm going to give the tip. So look at me. I'm the Mr. Nice guy. And it's just not part of their customs. I understand that you want to be nice and you want to give a tip, and usually giving a tip to someone who doesn't make a lot of money is a good thing, but also you want to know about tipping culture, okay? Greetings. You want to typically learn a little bit of the language. I would say that learning a little bit of the language, whether you're in a Spanish speaking country or Thailand or wherever you're at, knowing how to say at least hello, thank you, and maybe a few other words can really impress them enough to where they appreciate you. I think people really appreciate that, learning the language. Because when you show an effort to learn their language, that shows that you have a respect for them. That's a big thing. I heard that from people before many times, actually. Here in Thailand recently, I heard that. It takes me to my next point. This woman that I was talking to in Koh Samui, she was talking about some of the foreigners who come, and they're just very snarly or very rude. And she said, it's okay. She understands why they would do that. She didn't have a malicious or vindictive approach to it. She was just encouraging me because she knew that I was a YouTuber. She was encouraging me to maybe help people think about this. Your attitude. Don't have this sense of entitlement. Don't look down on people because they do massage, or because they work in some job that that you don't do. Okay, so it's never cool to look down on people and position yourself above them, or talk in a condescending tone or a condescending manner. Tourists have a tendency to do that, and travelers do too. It goes back to the whole, well, I'm not going to come here and spend my money anymore because this happened or that happened. Being that person is, number one, coming from a position of entitlement. It's not good. It's also just unpleasant behavior to be around. No one's going to gravitate or respect that. You saying that to someone doesn't make them say, "Oh wow, that person's really cool. I should have listened." It's not, you're not going to change their mind. If anything, what you can do is you can kind of say things in a different way and achieve the same result. So maybe you can say something like, "Oh, wow, I just got my bag and it has this little damage. It's okay, it's not that big of a deal," but you can show that to them. And they'll probably think for themselves, "Oh, wow, I'm sorry that happened. Let me see if there's something I can do for you." Maybe they won't, but at least you're not coming across as a jerk, but you're still telling them, "Yeah, there was some damage done, but it's okay. No big deal. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it pours, but life goes on, you know?" So I would say those are some big things to take into consideration when it comes to that. But the big ones that I would say also, respect the rules of the country. If like you're going to Maya Bay, for example, don't swim in Maya Bay if it's closed. Don't think, "Oh well, I'll just do it anyway," or "I'll just fly my drone here where it's banned." Don't climb on restricted sites. People try to climb things or touch the wildlife, or it's like in Hawaii, they want to get so close to the turtles that they scare the turtles, or you're not supposed to get within 5 feet of a turtle, but people want to get right up next to the turtles. They even put their hands on it. Um, it's good to respect the rule. Okay, I know sometimes we all do it. We kind of bend the rules a little bit. Maybe they say you're supposed to ride a bike with a helmet, and you decide you don't want to do that. But that kind of stuff just really frustrating. Or the one that kind of gets me is littering. Anytime I see someone litter, like they're so inconvenienced by their bottle or their wrapper or something, that they just toss their wrapper or they toss their bottle because they can't wait another 10 minutes until they actually find a trash bin or a receptacle. That's just terrible. And as a tourist, even if locals are doing it, don't be that person who's contributing to that, because over tourism is a thing. Just in Bali, for example, um, it's like, that's another thing that irritates me about the motorbike people who rent motorbikes. They get on the road and they just get road rage. I see a lot of foreigners with this road rage, and they always are overtaking people, and they're always driving around, and they always want to have the most fast bike, the loudest bike. They're creating noise pollution. They're driving kind of recklessly and sporadic, and then the next thing you know, this is the same person who might end up in a situation where they've got a GoFundMe because their parents said the person's on life support and they need to get them home. And it's a sad situation, don't get me wrong. I mean, no one wants to end up in that situation, but these are the guys that you'll see. They're riding around on their motorbikes, going so fast, doing popping wheelies and doing all these crazy things, and just not driving with respect. And then they get into an accident or they hurt someone else, and then they want to be bailed out of that situation, and it's just a bad thing to begin with. I'm not really big on riding motorbikes in a foreign country. I can understand someone who wants to go long distance and is responsible. They don't plan on doing any sort of alcohol while they're driving or anything like that. But people who just want to just cruise around and do it whatever they want because they got 150 baht per day, or 150, what is 150 baht? Like $5 a day motorbike. I mean, I see this all too often. I see this here in Phuket. I see it in Bali. I see it in other places. If you're going to get a motorbike, wear your helmet, but be respectful, okay? I get it. There's going to be traffic, and you're going to be frustrated, and you're going to be like wanting to zigzag in and out. But being that tourist, it only adds to the possible animosity towards tourists. I remember when we were just coming out of COVID, A lot of places were very happy to welcome back tourists. They were gleeful because they went a year and a half without tourists. Some people took advantage of that. Some people thought, oh, yeah, well, don't worry. Your savior's here. I'm here to spend money. So bow down because Big Daddy King is here to spend money after you guys have been on lockdown with no money. And people take advantage of that because they have this entitlement attitude. I just don't like it. Or maybe they'll start yelling at locals. I don't think it's ever good to get into a shouting match with a local, even if you feel like you've been done wrong. Don't get me wrong, there might be times where you're frustrated and you need to voice your concerns, and that should be okay. I mean, I've had it happen with me and other tourists. I will admit, at times I've gotten into it with other tourists just because I saw their disrespectful behavior, and instead of me saying nothing, I said something. Just an example, I was at a kebab shop where they sell shawarma, and there was a group of about four younger college age kids. And it was just me, and they were when they were ordering, they were saying like, "Hey, I want tomatoes, but no mayo, no chili sauce, but I want this, I want that, I want this, and all that." And then the next guy would come along and he's got all these specific things, and I said, "Why don't you just order the way they make it? Why don't? Because that's the thing that I always like to do. Tell me what your favorite dish is. Tell me what your favorite thing is." Now I get it. Some people might have allergies. They might be allergic or they don't like ketchup. That's fine. One or two things. But when it's something like four or five things, and every single one in your group is doing that, and there's a long line building, everyone's looking at them like, why are you the picky person? Why are you taking up their time? Because the staff doesn't want to deal with that. Or, so I'll say something. I'll be like, why are you guys behaving like that? Why are you being so picky? And it's because they think they can. They think that it's okay to just treat these people like they're their, stepping stools or something like that. I mean, I know some of you are watching, you're like, well, I only like what I like, and if I'm paying for it. But to me, that's the problem, is when you're saying, I'm paying for it so I can have someone wait on me hand and foot because you're paying $4 for something, because that's how much the shawarma is. A shawarma on the walking street is $4. So if you're like overcomplicating it and making things a pain in the butt, and then you're going to complain because one of those little details was off on your $4 dish, you've become a difficult person. I just would advise against that. I understand, some of you guys are going to have allergies and stuff, but that's just my recommendation. There was another time when I was getting a haircut. Some young kids from Vietnam were cutting their hair, and there was a young tourist. I'm not going to say the country he was from because at first I didn't even know. I was kind of surprised because I was like, who could possibly talk to someone that way? And this person was talking very aggressively to the kid who was cutting his hair. And it wasn't like the kid was doing a bad job. It was just the amount of detail this person wanted on their hair for their $4 haircut, maybe $3 haircut. It wasn't like they were paying $55 for the high-end haircut at, Gustafo's, haircut place. It was a $3, $4 haircut, and this guy sat in the chair for a good 30 minutes while this kid was just constantly trying to line him up and everything. And I was just sitting in the chair next to him, and I was like, one thing I don't ever want to be is a difficult person like that. Because I could see how that person was just so ridiculous and so silly and so, in my opinion, abusive about it. It's like, I think it's great that you get a haircut and support the locals who are, doing their job. I don't think it's good when you push them beyond their limitation or beyond what is expected. It's like, if you do go above and beyond what the service is expected, you should tip for that, okay? Or you should pay for that. You shouldn't just expect, some outstanding service based on, your $4 or $5 charge, okay? I mean, it's just common sense in my opinion, but you'd be surprised at how many people think that because they've got a stronger currency than the locals, that they can just do whatever they want, or because someone's young. Now, don't get me wrong, high expectations and high standards are a good thing, but it's also how you're communicating it. Like, if you're coming from a position of kindness and patience, I think it's good to, coach someone up or help elevate them. But if you're doing it just because you can and you're not coming from a position of love or kindness, I would say anytime you catch yourself in that kind of situation, slow yourself down, because I do it too. We all do it. We can all get impatient. We can all get cranky, but it's awareness. And that's the whole point of this video, is to raise awareness about things to take into consideration. It's like, this is the thou shall not do. This is the guidebook, right? This is what we should do as travelers or tourists to be at least guests in the country that people like to have, right? And that goes back to the whole ambassadorship comment, okay? Thinking of yourself as an ambassador for you, yourself, people who look like you, and your country. When people come to a place and they disrespect people, or they, start doing pranks and just doing all this stuff, or they're just being rude and mean, that's not good. I think joking is great. I love to joke around and make people laugh. Like, I think anytime you can share a laugh with someone, that's great. So that's my take on it. Hopefully this provides some insight from someone who's been traveling for a long time. See you guys on the next one. You can watch the next one about things to know about visiting Asia Q&A. Click here.